Universal Entertainment Networks feature human celebrations as the gold standard always. Part 1. Three eyes blinked in sequence as he stared at the data streaming across his holographic display. The executive had been analyzing entertainment statistics for 200 years, and nothing in his long career had prepared him for what he was seeing now. "This cannot be correct," he muttered, his translator chip rendering his clicks and whistles into galactic common. "Run the diagnostic again." His assistant, a floating orb of crystallized thought energy named, pulsed with what might have been confusion. "I have run it 17 times, Director. The data is accurate." Looked around the vast conference hall on Nexus Prime. Representatives from 47,000 entertainment networks filled the space, their forms ranging from gaseous clouds to towering to beings that existed partially in other dimensions. This was the annual Galactic Entertainment Council Summit, where the most powerful media executives in known space gathered to discuss ratings, contracts, and cultural trends. And according to the data in front of him, everything had changed in the past year. "Ladies and honored consciousness states," announced, his voice amplified across the hall, "we have detected an anomaly in our viewership patterns." The room fell silent. An anomaly in galactic entertainment was serious business. Trillions of credits were at stake. Every broadcast featuring human cultural celebrations has generated viewership spikes of 340% across all measured demographics. Paused, letting this sink in. Every single one. A ripple of disbelief moved through the crowd. The delegation buzzed angrily. The representatives remained perfectly still, which for them indicated extreme surprise. Even the minds of Chorus, who rarely paid attention to physical matters, focused their awareness on the presentation. "Humans," barked commander of the warrior caste. "The newcomers. They have been part of the galactic community for less than a decade." "Precisely," replied. "Yet when we broadcast their New Year celebration from a place called Times Square, we recorded the highest single-moment viewership in galactic history. 4 trillion beings across the galaxy watched humans count backward from 10 and then scream and kiss each other." "That is absurd," said High Scholar, rising from the delegation. He was tall and elegant, his silver skin gleaming under the hall's lights. His species had dominated galactic culture for 50,000 years. "Our millennial ascension ceremony featured perfect choreography from 10 million participants, holographic displays visible from orbit, and a synchronized meditation that lasted 72 hours. It was mathematical perfection." "It received adequate ratings," said carefully. "Adequate?" His voice rose. "We spent 3 centuries preparing that ceremony." "Yes, well," pulled up more data. "A human wedding in a place called Kansas, attended by approximately 150 people, where the bride's father cried and someone dropped the cake, received higher ratings than your ascension ceremony." The hall erupted in chaos. Various species shouted, clicked, telepathically projected, and emitted pheromones of disbelief. Waited for the noise to die down. "The council has requested an explanation. We have summoned a human consultant." A door at the side of the hall opened and a young human male walked in. He looked terrified. His name was, and until yesterday, he had been a junior data analyst at Earth Entertainment Networks. Now he stood before the most powerful beings in the galaxy, wearing a suit that he hoped looked professional. "Mister," said, "perhaps you can explain why your species' celebrations are so popular." Swallowed hard. "Honestly, sir, I have no idea. We just thought we were sharing our culture. We didn't expect anyone to actually watch." 4 trillion beings watched your New Year celebration," repeated. That's a lot," said weakly. "Indeed," gestured to the assembled crowd. "Can you explain what makes human celebrations different?" "Thought about this. Different from what?" "From proper celebrations," interjected. "Organized events with clear purpose and dignified execution." Oh, looked around the room. Well, I guess we just celebrate when we feel like celebrating. We have holidays for historical events, sure, but we also celebrate birthdays and weddings. And sometimes we just throw parties because it's Friday. Friday? Asked a representative. It's a day of the week, explained. The last day before the weekend. And this day requires celebration. Not requires, said. We just like to, because we're happy the work week is over. The tilted its massive head. You celebrate the cessation of labor. Well, yeah, and the start of free time. And sometimes we celebrate because the weather is nice, or because our favorite sports team won, or because we made it through a hard week, or because it's someone we love's birthday, or because we survived something difficult, or because... Enough, interrupted. You are saying humans celebrate without significant cause. I mean, we think there's cause, said a bit defensively. Life is hard. Good things should be celebrated. Made a sound that the translator interpreted as disdainful, primitive, emotional reasoning. But was thinking, the council has commissioned a study. Doctor, a human, has been analyzing the phenomenon for the past 6 months. Doctor, please present your findings. A woman with gray-streaked hair and warm brown eyes stepped forward. Doctor had spent her career studying how different species communicated and understood each other. This project had been the strangest of her life. Thank you, Director, she said. She pulled up a holographic display showing brain scans from dozens of species. What we've discovered is unprecedented. Human celebrations trigger positive neurochemical responses in 98.7% of known sentient species. That is impossible, stated a hen mathematician. Our neural structure is completely different from mammalian biology. And yet, Doctor said, highlighting a specific scan, when you watched the Diwali festival broadcast, your cognitive centers showed increased activity consistent with what humans would call joy. The hen looked uncomfortable, which for a crystalline being meant shifting through several colors. That is, I did find the lights aesthetically pleasing. You cried, added helpfully. The moisture sensors detected it. The hen turned an embarrassed shade of purple. Doctor continued, pulling up more data. We tested across species. They who normally find mammalian behavior repulsive showed intense engagement during carnival broadcasts. The bred for warfare exhibited what we'd classify as happiness during human sporting events. Even the minds of chorus, who exist partially outside our dimension, pause their higher contemplations to watch human weddings. This is clearly a biological attack, someone shouted from the back. The humans must be using some kind of mind control technology. We tested for that, Doctor said patiently. There's no technology involved. It's purely cultural. Then what is it? Demanded. Doctor took a deep breath. After 6 months of research, we've identified the key factor. Humans are the only species in the known galaxy that celebrates for the pure sake of joy itself. Silence fell across the hall. Every other civilization we've studied celebrates victories, religious mandates, or biological imperatives, Doctor continued. They celebrate achievements and milestones. They celebrate logical progressions. They celebrate successful molts and hive expansions. The hens celebrate mathematical discoveries. As is proper, said. But humans, Doctor said, celebrate everything. We celebrate the passage of time just because time passed. We celebrate personal achievements of complete strangers. We celebrate love, survival, seasons changing, and sometimes nothing at all. We just decide it's a good day for a celebration. That is irrational, stated a. Completely, Doctor agreed. And apparently every species in the galaxy finds it compelling, because you all optimized emotion out of your celebrations thousands of years ago. You made them efficient, purposeful, and dignified. Humans never did that. We kept celebration messy and spontaneous and genuine. Watched the crowd process this information. He saw confusion, disbelief, and on some faces, something that looked like longing. eyes blinked in sequence again. The Galactic Entertainment Council has made a decision. We are offering humanity-exclusive broadcasting contracts for all major celebrations. The revenue will be. Objection stood, and with him the entire delegation. Behind them, other ancient species rose as well. The consortium of ancient species formally objects to this proposal. Humanity is too young, too primitive, and too emotionally unstable to represent galactic culture. Their influence would be disastrous. The ratings disagree, pointed out. Ratings are not culture, said coldly. We have guided galactic civilization for 50,000 years. We will not allow it to be corrupted by juvenile emotionalism. Felt his face flush. Excuse me, but humans should be grateful we allow them to broadcast at all, continued. This proposal is rejected. The council will vote, said quietly. Let them vote, replied. The consortium represents 60% of galactic economic power. We will not permit this contract. Doctor looked at who was trembling with suppressed anger. She put a hand on his shoulder and whispered, "Let it go. This isn't over." But as the hall erupted into arguments and the vote was postponed, couldn't shake the feeling that something important was slipping away. The galaxy had finally noticed humanity, had finally seen something special in them, and now the ancient species were closing the door. Outside the hall, as they waited for transport back to Earth, Doctor stared up at the unfamiliar stars. "What do we do now?" asked. She smiled, and there was something determined in her expression. "We show them, not through data or arguments. We show them what human celebration really means." "How?" "I have an idea," she said, "but it's going to require the biggest party in human history." Part 2. 6 months had passed since the summit, and Earth had changed overnight. What the consortium had meant as a rejection had backfired spectacularly. Smaller networks, tired of ancient species controlling galactic entertainment, had offered independent contracts. Now every human celebration, no matter how small, had billions of extraterrestrial viewers. Stood in Times Square, watching preparation crews set up for New Year's Eve. This year would be different. This year, the broadcast was expected to reach 6 trillion viewers. Behind him, a grandmother from Brooklyn argued with a technical director about the proper placement of confetti cannons. "You need understand," the clicked, "optimal dispersal pattern requires precise mathematical." "Sweetheart," the grandmother interrupted, "confetti don't need to be optimal, it needs to be everywhere. That's the whole point." Grinned. That was exactly the kind of exchange that summarized the past 6 months. His phone buzzed. Doctor's name appeared on the screen. "Turn on Galactic News Channel 3, she said without preamble. Pulled up the feed on his smile faded. High Scholar stood before a massive crowd on the. Behind him, elaborate structures of crystallized light formed geometric patterns that shifted and pulsed with mathematical precision. "Today," announced, "we present the triumph of eternal glory, a celebration that demonstrates the superiority of refined culture over primitive emotionalism." The ceremony was magnificent. Millions of moved in perfect synchronization. Holographic displays showed the great achievements of their civilization. Music played that had been composed by their finest algorithmic musicians, each note calculated for maximum aesthetic impact. It was flawless, it was beautiful, it was completely sterile. Watched the live ratings scroll at the bottom of the screen. They were good, respectable, but nowhere near what human celebrations generated. "They're trying so hard," Doctor said softly over the phone, "and they still don't understand." The ceremony concluded with standing alone in a beam of pure light, arms raised in what was meant to be triumph. The crowd below showed appreciation through perfectly synchronized bowing. Then the broadcast cut to a different feed, a human celebration happening at the same moment, a grandmother's 100th birthday party in rural Japan. The house was crowded with family. Children ran around screaming with laughter. The grandmother sat in the center, wearing a party hat that was slightly crooked. Her grandson stood up to sing karaoke badly. He was enthusiastic but off-key, and halfway through the song, he did something with his voice that made the grandmother laugh. She laughed so hard that she snorted tea through her nose. The whole family erupted in laughter. The grandmother laughed at herself. Her grandson laughed and hugged her. Children who didn't fully understand why everyone was laughing laughed anyway because joy was contagious. The camera caught it all. The messy, chaotic, genuine love. Watched the ratings explode. Within minutes, the Japanese grandmother's birthday party became the most watched moment in galactic broadcast history, surpassing even the Times Square New Year celebration. The comments streamed in from across the galaxy, translated into thousands of languages. "Why does this make me feel warm?" asked a viewer. "I have not experienced this sensation in 3 centuries," wrote an anonymously. "More human grandmother content, please," demanded a hive mind. Felt vindicated, but also troubled. The galaxy was clearly dividing. Younger species embraced human celebration culture. Mixed species parties were becoming common on frontier worlds. He'd heard reports of warriors learning human dances, of hen mathematicians organizing Pi Day celebrations that involved eating circular food for no reason other than the pun. But the ancient species, led by the, were doubling down. They called it the of galactic civilization. The consortium had begun pressuring networks to reduce human content. Some smaller species, dependent on consortium trade, had. "It's getting worse," Doctor said, as if reading his thoughts. "The consortium is pushing for a vote on cultural dignity standards." "What does that mean?" "It means they want to ban unscripted human celebrations from broadcast. Only approved, organized events would be allowed." Felt cold. That would kill everything that makes our celebrations special. Exactly. The vote is in 3 months. Stared at the New Year's preparations around him. An idea was forming. A crazy, impossible idea. "What if we invite them?" he said slowly. "Invite who?" "Everyone, every species. We host a pangalactic festival on Earth, not just broadcasting. Actually invite them here to participate." Doctor was quiet for a long moment. "That's crazy, I know." "I was going to say brilliant," she said, "but also crazy. Do you know how much coordination that would require? The logistics alone." "Would be a nightmare," agreed. "But if we can show them, really show them what human celebration means, not through a screen but in person." The consortium would never agree. "They would if we issue a public challenge," said. "Make it about proving their way is better." His pride wouldn't let him refuse. Doctor laughed. "You're learning to think like a galactic politician." "Is that a compliment?" "Definitely not, but let's do it anyway." The announcement went out 3 days later. Earth would host the first pangalactic festival. Every species was invited. All continents would participate simultaneously. Carnival in Holi in India, Oktoberfest in Munich, Lunar New Year in Beijing, music festivals in Nevada, traditional ceremonies in Australia, and thousands more, all happening at once. The response was immediate. Younger species rushed to accept. Frontier worlds pledged to send delegations. News feeds across the galaxy buzzed with excitement. The consortium's response came from himself, broadcast across all major networks. "We accept this invitation," he said, his voice cold. "The Empire will attend and document the chaos and disorder that humanity calls celebration. We will demonstrate, once and for all, the superiority of refined culture." He paused, and his next words dripped with contempt. "Let the galaxy see what happens when emotion overrides dignity." Watched the broadcast with Doctor in her office, at the newly formed Galactic Cultural Exchange Program. "He's bringing documentary crews," Doctor noted. He wants to embarrass us." "Let him try," said, but his stomach was churning. They had 3 months to pull off the biggest party in human history, and the fate of human culture in the galaxy was riding on it. The preparation was chaos. Earth's government scrambled to coordinate. City planners argued with event organizers. Security forces from a dozen species tried to establish protocols. 3 billion extraterrestrial visitors had confirmed attendance. Hotels were overbooked. Transportation systems were overwhelmed. And in the middle of it all, try to remember why this had seemed like a good idea. 2 weeks before the festival, disaster struck. A transport ship crashed during landing practice, destroying a performance venue in Mumbai. News of the accident spread quickly. The consortium seized on it immediately. "This is what happens," announced, "when primitive species attempt events beyond their capability. Chaos leads to destruction. We warned you." Watched the news coverage with growing dread. Calls for cancellation flooded in. Several species their attendance. The Earth's government convened emergency meetings. Doctor found sitting alone in his office at 3 in the morning. "We can still pull this off," she said. "Can we?" Gestured at the news feeds. "Maybe they're right, maybe this is too much." Doctor said sharply, "Do you remember what you told the council? That humans celebrate because life is hard and good things should be celebrated. Well, this is hard, and when it works it's going to be good, so we celebrate the attempt itself." Looked at her tired face and felt something shift inside him. She was right. Win or lose, they were doing something important. "Okay," he said, "let's throw the best party the galaxy has ever seen." The final 2 weeks were a blur. The destroyed venue in Mumbai was rebuilt with help from engineers, who surprised everyone by working around the clock. A mathematical collective calculated optimal crowd flow patterns, then immediately ignored their own calculations to allow for spontaneous fun, a phrase that apparently caused a minor philosophical crisis in their species. The who had initially been repulsed by human celebrations volunteered to help with decorations, discovering that they loved working with colorful paper and glitter. And slowly, despite all the problems and setbacks and moments of panic, it came together. The night before the festival stood on a balcony overlooking. The city glowed with lights. In the distance, he could see ships from 100 worlds parked in designated zones. Tomorrow, 3 billion beings would celebrate together. Or it would be a complete disaster. He tried not to think about which was more likely. Part 3. The Pangalactic Festival began at dawn in Tokyo and rolled westward with the sun. Watched it unfold from the central coordination hub, his heart pounding as reports streamed in from every continent. The first crisis came within an hour. The delegation, led by himself, had arrived in New Orleans for the scheduled welcome ceremony. But somewhere between the spaceport and the French Quarter, the delegation had been separated in the crowds. "We've lost visual on 17 dignitaries," a coordinator reported, panic in her voice. "Lost?" Felt his stomach drop. "How do you lose 17 8-foot-tall silver people?" "The Mardi Gras parade started early," the coordinator explained. "The crowds just absorbed them." Doctor appeared at shoulder. "Let it happen." "Let it? Are you serious? If something happens to—" "Nothing will happen to him," Doctor said calmly. "Except maybe fun. Trust the process. This is what we wanted." High Scholar of the Empire was not having fun. He was, in fact, deeply concerned about dignity, his dignity specifically. He had been separated from his security detail by a surge of humans wearing colorful costumes and throwing small plastic spheres at each other. Now he stood alone on a street corner, watching what could only be described as organized chaos flow past him. A human woman, elderly and wearing more beads than seemed structurally sound, approached him. "Baby, you look lost," she said. "First time at Mardi Gras." "I am High Scholar of—" "That's nice, sugar. You want some beads?" She draped several strands of plastic beads around his neck before he could protest. "There you go. Now you fit in. Come on, the parade's starting and you ain't gonna see nothing standing back here." And somehow found himself being guided into the crowd by this small human woman who seemed completely unimpressed by his status. The parade was unlike anything he had experienced. The floats were garish and illogical. The music was too loud. People were dancing with no choreography whatsoever. It was disorganized and chaotic and completely undignified. But the humans were smiling, all of them, and despite his intentions to remain professionally detached, felt something shift in his chest. Meanwhile, the Empress herself had become separated from her own delegation in Mumbai. She had been attempting to document what she expected to be disorder at a holy celebration when someone had handed her a bag of colored powder. "For throwing," a child explained. "Throwing?" The Empress looked at the pink powder with confusion. "At what target?" "At people." The child laughed and threw a handful of blue powder at her friend, who shrieked with delight and retaliated. "This seems wasteful," the Empress said. "It's fun," the child said, as if this explained everything. The Empress was about to explain that fun was not a sufficient justification for anything when someone hit her with a burst of yellow powder. She turned, surprised, to see a teenage human girl grinning at her. "Sorry," the girl said, not looking sorry at all. "You were just standing there looking sad. Nobody should look sad during Holi." The Empress opened her mouth to explain that she was not sad, merely maintaining proper dignity, but another cloud of powder hit her, this time orange, and then green. And then suddenly she was in the middle of a powder fight, colors exploding around her, and for the first time in her 400 year, the Empress started laughing. Reports flooded into the coordination hub. The festival was spreading beyond any planned containment. A warrior commander had joined a football watch party in London and was now weeping openly over something called a penalty kick. A hen mathematical collective in Beijing had discovered that fortune cookies were statistically random and had spent 3 hours analyzing this while eating approximately 400 cookies. "This is out of control," a government liaison said nervously. "This is perfect," Doctor corrected. Watched the feeds with growing wonder. On one screen, a hive section was learning face painting at a festival in Kenya. On another, representatives were attempting to explain the offside rule to confused humans at a World Cup viewing party, and somehow both species were crying about it. Then came the incident that had been dreading. A warrior, unused to human alcohol and celebrating perhaps too enthusiastically, had accidentally destroyed part of a sound stage. The music stopped. Dancers froze. For a moment, complete silence fell over that section of carnival. Held his breath. This was it. This was the disaster the consortium had predicted. The moment that would prove humans couldn't handle galactic-scale events. But then something happened that would remember for the rest of his life. The humans started laughing. Not nervous laughter or polite laughter, but genuine amusement. The warrior, expecting punishment or at least anger, looked around in confusion as humans and other species began examining the wreckage. "Well, that's one way to modify the stage," someone said. "New percussion section," another person called out and started drumming on a piece of broken equipment. Within minutes, the wreckage had been incorporated into the celebration. Dancers used the debris as props. Musicians played on the broken pieces. The warrior, now wearing a flower crown that someone had placed on his head, was shown how to play samba rhythms on what used to be a speaker array. Watched this unfold and felt tears in his eyes. This was it. This was what Doctor had been trying to explain to the council. Humans didn't celebrate because things were perfect. They celebrated despite imperfection, and sometimes because of it. The festival continued through the day and into the night. On every continent, barriers broke down. Species that had never spoken to each other found themselves dancing together. Ancient grudges were forgotten in the shared experience of joy. And then, as the sun set over New Orleans, High Scholar did something unprecedented. He requested a galaxy-wide broadcast. Watched nervously as image appeared on screens across every settled world. The scholar stood on a balcony overlooking the French Quarter. His silver skin was covered in beads and colored powder. His hair, usually perfectly styled, was disheveled. There was glitter on his face. The consortium would be watching. The fate of human cultural influence hung on whatever said next. They took a breath and began to speak. For 50,000 years, he said, the Empire has celebrated our perfection. We built monuments to our achievements and created ceremonies to honor our glory. We removed every inefficiency, every unpredictable element, every unnecessary emotion from our culture. We believed this was evolution. We believed this was civilization. He paused, and something in his voice changed. We were wrong. Heard gasps from around the coordination hub. Today, continued, I stood in the middle of a human celebration. I was surrounded by chaos and disorder. There was no purpose to it, no greater meaning. People threw colored powder at each other for no reason. They danced with no choreography. They celebrated simply because they decided it was time to celebrate. And I felt something I have not felt in 400 years. I felt joy. Not satisfaction at a task completed, not pride in an achievement, just pure, irrational joy at being alive and being part of something larger than myself. The camera zoomed in on his face. His expression was soft in a way never allowed themselves to show publicly. Humans don't celebrate because they're perfect, he said. They celebrate because they're alive. They celebrate survival and love and change and existence itself. They taught me what we lost. We spent 50,000 years perfecting celebration, and in doing so, we forgot what celebration actually was. He looked directly into the camera. The point of civilization is not to transcend joy. The point is to create more of it. Raised a glass that someone had given him. I declare that the Empire withdraws all objections to human cultural broadcasts. Furthermore, we formally request that humanity teach us how to celebrate again. The broadcast ended. For a moment, silence filled the coordination hub. Then someone started cheering, and then everyone was cheering, found himself hugging Doctor while people around them laughed and cried and celebrated. The remaining hours of the festival were a blur. With the consortium's opposition lifted, the celebration exploded across the galaxy. Ships that had been held back by cultural restrictions now rushed to Earth. Broadcasts reached every corner of known space. As dawn broke over Earth on the second day, stood on a balcony inn watching the sunrise. Below him, the streets were full of beings from 100 worlds, still celebrating. Doctor found him there, holding 2 cups of coffee. We did it, she said simply. They did it, corrected, gesturing to the crowd below. We just invited them. They stood in comfortable silence, watching teach a group of human children an intricate dance pattern, while warriors argued good-naturedly with locals about the best type of barbecue. You know what happens next? Doctor asked. The festival becomes annual. Already confirmed, but more than that. Human celebration consultants are being requested on 40 systems. The Empress wants to create a fusion festival combining harvest traditions from Earth and there. They have invented something they're calling logical party games that somehow still involve silly hats. Laughed, that sounds perfect. There's something else. Doctor pulled up a message on her. You've been offered the position of head of the Galactic Cultural Exchange Program. Full ambassadorial status. Looked at her, what about you? I've been offered the same position, she said with a smile. I think they want us to work together. To spread celebration across the galaxy. To spread understanding, Doctor corrected. The celebration is just the method. thought about this. He thought about the past year, about the fear and the struggles and the moments when it all seemed impossible. He thought about Covered in Glitter, and the Empress laughing with colored powder in her hair, and all the barriers that had broken down in the past 24 hours. You know what the real discovery was, Doctor said softly. It wasn't that humans are unique in how we celebrate. It's that we never forgot that celebration itself, pure irrational joy shared with others, is what makes civilizations worth building in the first place. Raised his coffee cup to humanity. Doctor touched her cup to his, to everyone. Across the galaxy, on 47,000 worlds, billions of beings of every conceivable form raised their drinks, tentacles, appendages, and consciousness fields in agreement. The sun rose higher, golden light spreading across Earth. The celebration continued. Music drifted up from the streets, a fusion now of Earth rhythms and alien melodies, creating something entirely new. And former junior analyst, now ambassador of celebration to the galaxy, smiled and went down to join the party. Because if there was one thing humanity had taught the galaxy, it was this. Any moment was a good moment to celebrate being alive together, under strange stars or familiar suns. The universe was large and often frightening, but it was also full of beings who, given the chance, would choose joy over perfection, connection over dignity, and celebration over solemnity. And that thought was worth celebrating,